Hi, my name is Liz with Big Hairy Dog, and in just a moment here, we're going to get started on our physical inventory webinar. It's going to be a physical inventory for Retail Pro version 9. And like I said, we're going to get started in just a bit here. My name is Liz with Big Hairy Dog. We're going to wait a few minutes to go ahead get started here and give everyone a chance to go ahead and get registered and get on it. Thanks so much. For the few people that have joined, my name is Liz with Big Hairy Dog. Today we're going to be going over Retail Pro version 9 physical inventory. We're going to get started in just a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead and give just a few more minutes. But in regards to the actual meeting, by default, everyone is brought in and muted, but you can feel free to raise your hand at any time. If you have a mic, I'm more than happy to unmute you. If you prefer, you can always just go ahead and type the question. I'll go ahead and read it out loud or whatever part of it pertains to the group, and then we'll go ahead and answer those questions as we go. We're going to have plenty of time at the end of the webinar as well, so if you guys want to go ahead and sit back and kind of soak it all up and then ask questions, feel free to. Like I said, we'll have more than enough time. I apologize if I end up missing one or two questions as we're going through. I'm going to do my best to keep an eye out for them, though. Thank you so much. We'll get started here in just another minute. Thank you. All right. So it's been a few minutes. We're going to go ahead and get started here. If anybody does join in a little bit later, or if you don't have your entire group quite ready, don't worry. We are going to be sending out this video to everyone who is registered, and then it'll be available on our Big Hairy Dog website for others that didn't get a chance to go ahead and join in today. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And so on my screen currently, hopefully everybody can go ahead and see that. It looks like we're good. All right, so on my screen currently is a little bit of an agenda. We're going to go ahead and, like I said, if we have questions or anything like that, you might move from this. I will also be referencing one of our PI manuals. This is specifically for the PT scanner. So this is that larger scanner. It's a workhorse, been around for quite some time. If this is not the scanner you'll use, the basics of inventory is going to be the exact same. And feel free to go ahead and give us a quick call or email. You can even jump into the tech chat, but you can always request those documents. I have PI manuals for Janum scanners, palm scanners, manual entries. We have it all. All right, for today, we're going to go ahead and use my PI inventory manual for PTs in order to kind of give us some structure and for some examples that I unfortunately can't go ahead and display onto the screen currently, issues like a bad scan. Although we are using this file, I actually don't currently have a scanner attached to my machine, so I have a little hard time showing you guys what a bad scan is going to look like. So this is going to help us out. All right, so to start, prepping for your PI. So of course, we always recommend that you have a fresh backup. Most of you, or really all of you, should have a backup at least once a day, and that's going to be courtesy of Retail Pro itself. We can go ahead and schedule those backups to happen and to drop somewhere on your computer. Now, Big Hairy Dog does require a two-tiered backup structure. So if you're not sure what your second level of backing up is, I would go ahead and make sure that we A, have it, and B, that it's working appropriately. Most people kind of go one of two ways. We're either going to bring in an external hard drive or thumb drive, plug it in and make a copy. That's the more manual way, my preferred method, to be honest. And the other method, of course, is having some kind of automated structure. So usually you see that with cloud-based backup software. And of course, it's great because that can be much more automatic, but that usually does come at an added cost. Usually we're renting the space in the cloud that usually comes at a monthly or an annual fee. So keep that in the back of your mind, and I'll go ahead and jump off of that soapbox. But yes, backing up, very important. We want to make sure we have a fresh, clean backup ready just in case anything happens. All right, on-hand report. So that's going to be something that is optional, but a lot of people really do like to go ahead and run a current on-hand report, and then of course we'll run an on-hand report as soon as we're done. That's one way of looking at some of those differences. Of course, I'm going to show you guys how to go ahead and take a look at that actual adjustment that's created after we complete a PI as well. I personally really like taking a look at the adjustment, especially using the Big Hairy Dog adjustment memo format. It really breaks it down for you what all of that adjusting means to you in dollars. All right. The other thing we want to do is, of course, we want to make sure, hopefully the day before, if you can only do it that day, that's all right. But hopefully the day before you're trying to do your PI, we get a chance to bring in those scanners, make sure they're fully charged, connected, and we can actually upload some scans. So we do want to go ahead and test a download of those scans from the scanner. Remember, Big Hairy Dog does go ahead and rent out inventory scanners. Usually, if we rent out inventory scanners to you, we'll go ahead and set you up with a training appointment and or training/install appointment. So you get a little bit of a refresher because it's been a year, and you know that your scanners are going to go ahead and be working for you. All right. And of course, if you have your own inventory scanners, still you just want to go ahead and make sure that they're working, especially if you're only using them for PI. We usually put those guys away, and you never know. All right, zone map. So I'm sure most of you are familiar. We will go ahead and always recommend that you break your store up into zones. No matter how big or how small, it's just much, much easier to find and deal with issues like bad scans when you have zones. So I'm going to go ahead and one more time jump over to my manual. We're going to scroll down here. So phase one, our preparations is where we are now. This is a great example of a zone map. And so we have codes and colors. We went a little crazy with that zone map, but I know exactly where to look if I need to find an error that happened in zone A03, 2 racks. All right. And besides having a zone map on paper, of course, the big issue and the big thing comes in making sure that those distinctions are clear to our associates helping us run the PI. Some people will use colored post-it notes. Other people use tape on the ground. Whatever method works best for your store. We just want to make sure that we are eliminating any possibility of somebody accidentally just veering off into someone else's zone and double scanning some items. All right. And now polling. So this is, of course, specific for our multi-store environments. In a multi-store environment, before we go ahead and start our PI, you do want to make sure that we have completed polling. We want to go ahead and you could even do a quick poll. If you are not sure how to do a quick poll, you give us a call. I'd love to go through it with you. That is going to be in your ECM. Oftentimes they are already set up and it is just that quick poll button. If you're interested in seeing if your quick poll is set up, still in ECM, our Enterprise Communications Manager, you're going to go to Options, Workstation Preferences. All right. Oh, the wrong one. Rules. And there you go. You can see what's quick polling and in what order. All right. Like I said, I know this is a PI webinar, so I'll go ahead and minimize that for now. But yes, polling, we want to make sure that is complete before we go ahead and get started. All right. So we're going to go ahead and jump actually into Retail Pro proper. And I'm going to take a quick moment to hop into our system preferences. All right. The only reason I'm hopping into system preferences, most of the time this is already set up, but for the one or two of you where this might not be, I want to go and make sure you guys know where you can go. All right. So under our local preferences, merchandise, PI tool. Here's where we can set up our PI specific information. So under physical inventory type, we're going to set that to zones. Although a simple physical sounds nice and easy, that is one giant pool for all of your scans and makes finding those errors a lot harder. So we're going to use zones. We can select what we are initializing by, a default update PI with. We're going to talk a little bit more about what all items and quantities only mean in just a bit here. I personally have this set up to filter at the start. This does open, this does give me the option of filtering for a specific department or a specific vendor. That is going to be closer to a cycle count, not a complete PI. What we're going to do today is a complete PI, but I'm going to leave that just so you guys can see what it looks like. All right. So if I'm using a PT scanner, I want to make sure that I'm not stripping leading zeros. A lot of you will have started at ALU 100,000. Some of you may have started at ALU 1. So I do not want the PT to strip those leading zeros. That 0000001 is what should show up because that is your ALU. All right. I will allow it to trim some leading spaces, and I'm personally allowing my PI to reactivate inactive inventory items. It's on my floor, and somehow it got inactivated, but I have the quantity. I do want to be able to sell it. So Retail Pro, you can go ahead and reactivate that item for me. If that's unchecked, and we do have an instance like that, then you will have to go ahead and yourself go reactivate that item. All right. And this, what we're doing currently, I'm set up to be a single store. I don't have any polling, but we can set this up to update inventory counts at the remote station if you're not physically there. Most of the time, remotes will handle their own PIs, though, I will say. Import maps, we're going to talk a little bit about this again when I actually get into the PI tool, but this is essentially how Retail Pro knows how to read my import file because I tell it. So I have down here my PI. We begin at space 0, we end at space 5 for a total length of 6, and that is my ALU. My count has only three digits because I don't have anything higher than that, and that's about it. And now at the very, very end, I just tell it that my unique identifier is going to be my ALU. This will make a little bit more sense when we actually go into the PI table. But again, this is just a map. We're trying to tell Retail Pro how to read a file that I'm going to go ahead and introduce to it later. All right. All right, so if we do have a question, if I am a multi-store location and I have to allow PI to reactivate items at each store, so if we share a single subsidiary inventory, well, essentially the key is, are you handling the PI for the store, or are the stores handling it themselves? Because if it's coming from our main, then yes, you can go ahead and just do that at the main, but if the PI is being handled at a store location, then we want to make sure that those settings are set up at the store location to allow them to reactivate. All right. Smart Scan. For right now, we're going to talk a bit more about scanner options and what Smart Scan is. But a PT scanner, your basic JANM without foundry logic, those are what we lovingly call dummy scanners. All they're doing is grabbing whatever code we scan and holding on to a count, and that's it. A smart scanner, a scanner with foundry logic or similar, like a Zebra scanner, is going to be able to hold your inventory. So at scan time, it'll tell you whether or not that item exists in your inventory. And so it's really easy to catch simple mistakes like, oops, I accidentally scanned the packing slip or some other barcode that was attached to this item instead of my barcode. Easy enough. I'll actually go ahead and just skip over it, and I will scan the right barcode. All right, and that's with a smart scanner that has access to your inventory. All right. Sorry, I have to move my controls around a little bit so I can hit this update button. All right. I'm actually going to go ahead and pop into here as well. So again, that reminder that multi-store locations, make sure that we run on-hand reports at the main and at your remotes, and ECM should be completed prior to starting physical inventory. Workstation preferences. So this part will be different depending on the scanner you guys are using. Then again, if you're renting scanners through Big Hairy Dog, we're going to help you set all this up. But this is going to be workstation configuration for a PT scanner. And again, we can get these manuals out to anybody who needs them. This is going to be our system preferences one more time, that reminder to make sure we are using zone. All right. That brings us down to phase 2. And in phase 2, we actually get to jump into our inventory and start our PI. So we will usually recommend that you close your store for your physical inventory. It's a lot to juggle to be open, because if you are open, essentially we want to make sure that items are being counted before they leave your store. So of course there are ways around it, and there's a lot of people who actually do stay open, and they kind of have it down to a science. The cashier scans all the items. Maybe we have someone there helping that scans them into a physical inventory scanner right after. Doesn't really add any time to point of sale because we have 2 people. If you can't afford the 2 people, then it's a little bit more juggling. All right, so I stalled enough for my inventory to open up. I'm going to use physical inventory here, and we have to start at the store level. You see, my zones are currently grayed out. That is, something that I should be looking for. You can't create zones until you first start the physical in your store. If when you hit physical inventory, you see both available, that means that you have an active PI, maybe someone was practicing. So we want to go ahead and make sure that we inactivate the one that we are not using or the test one, whatever it may be, and we start our real one. So PI name, it does hold on to any previous names that you've had in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just say, we're still in January? Yes. Okay. And so we're going to make sure that we select our store. Without a store selected, you will actually not be able to create the PI. You hit create. Notes are not required. All right, and so here is that filter at the start. So again, if I wanted to just count a specific department or a specific vendor, I could. But right now, I'm going to run a complete physical. So I'm not going to filter for anything. I'm going to let that be open. And so currently, right now, Retail Pro just took a snapshot of everything it thinks that I should have. My start quantity, you can call it expected quantity. It's essentially your current on hand. All right. So if I highlight the inventory and I hit PI inventory, I can see that. I can see my entire inventory here. And so we have our start quantities, of course, no scans just yet, and I can go ahead and see discrepancies. Discrepancies you only want to look at the store level. We can't check out discrepancies at the zone level. And I would say don't worry about the discrepancies until we get all of our zones merged together, because then you know we're not missing anything. And if the discrepancies are large enough, that could actually be a cue to you that we might have missed a zone. All right, but for now, we've started our PI, and now I'm going to go ahead and come down to PI zones. And there we go. So I can build them all in one go, or I can go ahead and build one, fill it, merge it, and be done with it. So it just depends on, essentially for me, it depends on whether or not I have help. So store, we have to select it. Name is also required, but we can, in my case, I'm not going to be very creative here. Normally I'd say make it match the actual zone itself in your zone map. For example, if we were going off of my manual here, I would probably just call them R01, R02, R03, just to keep everything straight. All right. And so this, again, you see, it's going to walk you right through it. If you really don't have this manual, I would suggest letting us send that over to you. That way, if you forget any of these small steps, we'll be able to go ahead and continue on anyways. All right. So here we go. I'm going to just call it Zone A, no notes. Or at least notes are not required. I'm going to also set up Zone B, because let's say in this scenario, I do have a little help. I have maybe 2 scanners, so I can send both people off. And I can even go ahead and scan a few things right here. Maybe I'm working on this at one of the point of sale screens, and I can go ahead and take care of all of those little knickknacks at the very front. All right. So I've created a few zones. Now highlighted on a zone, I can go into scanned. All right. Now here in the scans, using the new button or the add counts button essentially have the exact same functionality. We're going to get this add counts window. And so manual, we can go ahead and of course enter things in just by hand. Again, if I have this open on a workstation and I have items close by, I can consider that a zone of my own, and I can just start scanning them in with my regular merchandise scanner, or I can just start typing in their ALU. Missed a 4. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and actually close. I want to get that scan on there. Anytime that we're using this box, you want to always hit close, not cancel. Cancel will drop your scans. Close will go ahead and bring your scans onto our page here. So one more time, I'm going to add counts. You'll see now that we have something, my clear counts is available as well. If they're really close together, be careful with that. All right, import. So this import map is the same, or maps really, are the same maps that I have set up in my inventory or my system preferences. And so I can choose the correct one, and let's say it's my PI. And if I were going to use this to, if I were going to go ahead and import my PI, I would just need to browse to the file, select the file that that it is, my actual PI file, and just hit open. While we're highlighted on the correct map, we would just hit import. So usually I'll see these if we've gone a little bit more manual. Perhaps we actually just use an Excel sheet, put it on a laptop, and had someone just walk around with an inventory scanner attached to it. That's a really low tech way of getting that Excel sheet filled out. You could, of course, do it by hand. That's much more manual, but very doable. And what we're going to kind of talk about today is our portable device. And so I'm actually going to go ahead and close that. So you can see system's smart enough to understand that I actually don't have a portable device. It's getting a little upset with me. Let me go ahead and come on down here. All right. Scanned, add count. And for the PT scanner, it's actually very straightforward. Really, for most of these scanners, it's pretty straightforward once we get the scanner set up. You're going to click that portable terminal, and we're going to go ahead and this will never change. Despite whatever scanner you're using, it's always going to stay to start the download, select Start Send. For like a Palm or a Janum scanner, you guys are actually going to be looking for the hot sync button. Over here on the PT, we're going to use these keys, F4, F2, and F1 to start send. Once we do that, all it does is bring it into the screen and drop it onto my zone, just like my manual one did. All right, and so occasionally people will run into some errors, not so much in my opinion with the PTs, but I've seen it a little bit with our Janums and Palms. That they cannot create the retail profiles, and but before they did. Maybe the last zone we were able to make those files no problem. This zone is giving us trouble. In situations like that, I always recommend just undocking it, making sure all your connections are strong and solid, and redocking it. I wouldn't say all the time, but maybe about 80% of the time, it's just it didn't make that connection well enough to actually send those files. I've even seen people get errors, but the scans all showed up. That's usually just a connection issue. All right, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 one more time. All right. All right. All right. So I'm just adding a few manual counts so we can go ahead and get some inventory in here. I'm going to one more time close, not cancel, no matter which one you use. There we go. And so we can go ahead and see that it does consolidate our items as well. So we don't have just a huge list going on down the line. The scan quantity will update. Go ahead and back out. So let's say you had accidentally scanned something that didn't exist in your inventory and thus ended up with a bad scan. No worries. We're going to walk you through how to correct that. One thing to note in between your zones, it is important that you go ahead and delete the last zone, especially in these, lovable dummy scanners. A dummy scanner doesn't have multiple sessions and kind of just keeps going. Some of the newer, nicer scanners, or not nicer, but some of the newer, smarter scanners, you have the ability to create sessions. In those sessions, you can keep them separate, like our Palm and Foundry Logic. You can keep those sessions separate. You can rename them. Much less important to delete. But for like a PT, you always want to make sure that you delete your scans after you've successfully uploaded them. All right. Now, handling scanning errors. So, like I said, occasionally we'll scan the wrong item, and if it's not a smart scanner, it won't tell us when we actually scan it. It'll tell us in Retail Pro. As soon as we go ahead and get that file downloaded, it'll say some items were not found in inventory. Okay. Of course, don't panic. That's okay. So what happens in Retail Pro, highlighted on the zone that has a bad scan, we'll just pretend we have one, you're going to want to click Errors right over here. This actual spacing of your buttons might be different. But if you're missing something that you need, you're going to right-click Menu Designer, and you're going to be able to go ahead and add that to your screen. If you don't have the permission to enter Menu Designer, this will be grayed out. In that case, you want to sign in as somebody who has permission or ask the powers that be to give you permission, especially if you're missing something critical like a merge zone. All right. So remember, highlighting on the zone with the bad count, you're going to hit errors. And this is where I'm going to use this guy to kind of help us out. One more time, highlighting on the zone, click errors. All right. And so this is what your error is actually going to look like. A single error is going to have 3 line entries. What it does is it shows you the item that it understood that you scanned right before it. It shows you the import ID of the error, and then it shows you the item that you scanned right after. So you can see why having a smaller zone to go back to is the easiest thing. So if it's just a single rack that I have to search for, and my flower plate D8.5 garden, okay, and then I have a truffle vinyl storage vent, I know exactly where those 2 items are in my aisle, in my zone. And so if I know where those 2 items are, I know where this mystery item is. And so then I can go back to that zone. I can either grab the item and scan it into a corrections zone, or I can just grab the correct item number, ALU, UPC, whatever it may be, and I can manually add it. So I'm going to go ahead and pop back that one. Remember, scanned, add counts. Oh, see, that clear counts is dangerous. Add counts, and I can manually add that error. All right, the moment we have questions. All right, and so the differences between counts and scans. All right, let's go ahead and pop out once here. All right, so counts is the actual count of inventory. So if we scanned 2 items and we scanned them each twice, we have 4 counts, but technically only 2 unique scans. And that's essentially how it breaks down. So in this zone here, I have 3 good scans, 4 counts. Did that again. So I have 3 unique entries and then 4 actual physically counted items. And so that's the difference between scanned and counts. A lot of people actually end up using them interchangeably, but that's what Retail Pro breaks them out as. And so you can actually go ahead and kind of keep an eye out for where you are in your PI. If we get a chance to merge this into our zone, then it'll add those counts for us, those scans for us. And if you know your inventory is roughly 10,000 items, the closer we get to the 10,000 individual scans, the closer you are to being almost done. All right. So one more time, we're going to have our bad scan sandwiched in between the 2 items that Retail Pro could understand. So we know exactly where to go to look for that item. Now, there's really nothing that you can do about the error besides resolve it. All we want to do is hit the resolve button. We will get that scan in separately because Retail Pro doesn't want to hang on to this number here. It doesn't mean anything to Retail Pro. There's nothing it can attach it to. So we're just going to hit resolve and make sure that we get it accounted for however we decide to account for it, whether that be, like I said, a correction zone or just adding it manually. Adding it manually is, in my opinion, the quickest and easiest way. There are instances where the bad scan might be an item that we actually didn't get a chance to list in Retail Pro. Maybe our receiving department was a little too excited. They put it on the floor before we actually got a chance to voucher it in. In that case, I would say just put it off to the side and hold off till later. Once we're done with our PI, we can go ahead and create the item and voucher it in as appropriate and let the voucher correct our quantity. All right, that brings us to phase 3. So phase 3 is essentially we are done counting and we are done counting that zone. And we are done dealing with any bad scans if they pop their heads up. And so my zone A here, maybe that was a really small zone, but we're all done. So I can just highlight the zone and use merge zone. You're about to merge the zone into your physical inventory. Do you wish to continue? Why, yes, I do. And there we go. Now we get that little check mark. This zone has been merged, and there is our merged date. Now if I pop back up to my stores, now I can start seeing some scans add up. Let's go ahead and enter my scans here. Did the same one. Okay, got that guy. Pop on out. So that has 5 additional counts. Just as a reminder, you are not going to see those counts or those scans at the store level until you've merged that zone. This does give you a little bit of flexibility. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say that this one's also done. Any errors we got in, and we resolved those errors. See, my resolved is grayed out because I just don't have any errors. The resolve button, interestingly enough, is the one that I usually see missing from people's screen. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. Another way of merging them is you can mark selected, especially if you're trying to do multiple, and then we can just merge marked. In this case, I was just merging one, so merge zone would have been a little faster, but that's an easy way to go ahead and merge multiple zones. Mark and then merge marked. Depending on the buttons that you have on the screen, your store might do it a little different. So it's one of the two. All right. So you can see now that I have a zone merged, I have access to my unmerged. If I need to make any edits or someone comes up and says, oh, Liz, I'm so sorry, that zone A that I didn't even count the other half of the aisle. I don't know what happened. No problem. I'm just going to unmerge. And if they are absolutely sure they know exactly where they left off, I might trust them to go ahead and just continue and add counts. If not, I might just clear the counts and have them restart for me. All right, we're going to back out. I'm going to go ahead and merge zone. All right. We're going to pop out, and now I can see those scans added to my store. And so one more time, at the store level is the only place that you really need to go ahead and look at the discrepancies. The zones do not have a start quantity, so it's impossible to check discrepancies at the zone level. All right, so I can go ahead and see my current discrepancies, my start quantity, and my end quantity are a little off, especially for some of these. And so I can go ahead and print this. Come on. And we here at Big Hairy Dog, we have a few additional documents. So we have our PI by department, our all items, essentially just by ALU, PI items as well, vendor by item, and then we have our scans and discrepancies by department. We also have a PI bad scan. If you're missing some of these or any of these, feel free to go ahead and, again, email me or give us a call. We'll go ahead and set you up with what you need. Unfortunately, I cannot get a discrepancies by zone. Retail Pro doesn't have a way of understanding how you broke out your store. And so we can't break out discrepancies by zones, although we understand that that would be the most beneficial. We try our best by going and giving you something by department, by vendor, and of course by item. And then of course we have our PI discrepancy reports that come just with Retail Pro, PI scanned and discrepancies. Go ahead and run one of the big hairy dog ones for right now. All right, there we go. You see, I enjoy this one. It's in a grid. It lays it out pretty easily for me, and it does kind of show me what that means to me in dollars. So I have some interesting data here, but that's just, this is a test environment for me. A little bit further down, we start seeing some more appropriate numbers. So let's go ahead and close that. Nope. All right. So dealing with discrepancies. So dealing with the discrepancies usually means we're going to select the discrepancies, maybe even the departments that we want to double check. Normally, I'd say you want to reserve your energy for those mission critical items. I don't really mind if I'm off by two or three chapsticks. I very much mind if I'm off by 2 or 3 necklaces. So I might go ahead and focus my energy in checking any of those discrepancies. You can always back out of your PI entirely, jump back into your inventory, and something that I hope everyone remembers is you have access to your history. So if a specific item is giving you trouble, we can go ahead and go to that item, filter for or search for that item, and then look at that item's history. Remember, history is going to go ahead and drop you normally into sales history. We can look at all history, and essentially you can see everything that's happened to that item since that item was built in Retail Pro. This includes adjustments, sales, and it's, well, really the adjustments are the most important part. We can see when and hopefully why people changed it. Adjustments made in inventory by your system administrator might not have comments or reasons, but manual adjustments usually do. So you can see here we have quite a few adjustments going on with this item. So if I had a rather large discrepancy, I might want to go ahead and open up some of these adjustments and kind of see why we've been touching this item so much. All right, let's go ahead and pop back into my inventory, back into physical inventory, and you see now that I have a PI and now that I have PI started, I have access to my zones. I can actually just jump right in there directly. Right now, I am still going to start at the store level and then jump into zones. All right. So as a reminder, we're going to go ahead and merge our zones. You're going to get that check mark on all your merged zones. Reviewing discrepancies at the store level. This one is a little bit of an older view on our physical inventory discrepancies zone or physical inventory discrepancies page. All right. All right. So sorry about that, guys. Okay. We're going to go ahead and continue on forward. So we're at the store level here, and we've checked out our discrepancies. We focused our energy on those items that we need to. If you're ever interested to see what zones have been merged, or like I mentioned earlier, if you feel like you're missing quite a lot of inventory, you always want to check out your merged zone list. So I can see right here, oh, A and C are merged. I'm missing B. I'm missing an entire zone. So I can go ahead and hop on out, go into zones, and there you go. If somehow I missed it, I didn't get any scans into that zone B, whether that was just an upload that failed that I totally missed, or we just never got that scanner back. But definitely a red flag, so we want to go ahead and take a look around. All right. Let's say that zone was actually something that I didn't need, and we've dealt with all of our discrepancies. Really, if we've looked at our discrepancies, we're accepting of our discrepancies, and any issues we're going to go ahead and correct any new items we're going to add in later. This is essentially done. You're going to have way more zones than just 2, hopefully. But for the purpose of our examples, we're all set. All right. And so next is actually just updating that PI. And so I'm going to click on Update PI. So reason, I did set up actually, I apologize, I didn't set up a physical inventory reason. What I want to do is set up a physical inventory reason because this is not a manual, it's not damaged, it doesn't quite fit any of these here. And so let me actually go ahead and take a pause. If anybody is curious as to where we can get that done, that is going to be in System Preferences. I'm going to back out a little bit more. Options, System Preferences, Local Preferences. All right, there we go. Save that guy, and I will update. Now I'm going to pop back into my inventory. You can definitely tell I put my system through the ringer. All right, physical inventory. Once more, I'm going to start at the store level. If you needed to do work in the zones, you could jump directly to the zones. All right, we're going to update this PI. And there we go, we got the physical. And of course, again, it's not going to go ahead and let you update until you select your store. This is actually grayed out until you get a chance to do that. All right. And so now, remember we said we were going to come back to this, but options, we can update all inventory or quantities only. So if you are running a complete PI and we are counting every item in your store, then I would want to go ahead and update all inventory. Quantities only is telling the system that I only want to update the quantities for the items that I physically told you I had counts for, so all the items that I scanned. Now, quantities only is good in certain instances. There are times where you might need it, but all inventory, that's what's going to catch all of your negative quantity items. So if we've gone into the red and we've sold it down to -2 and there are 0 in my store, I'm not going to count that. I'm not going to be able to scan that. I can't scan something that isn't there. And so if I were to go ahead and use quantities only, those negative items would still be in my inventory. If we use all inventory, then those negative items are going to be adjusted up to 0. All right. Right now, we can go ahead and just say update. Yes. Okay. So in my case, I have some unmerged zones. I know that it is a zone that I didn't actually put any scans into. Normally, when you're going through your PI, you're going to want to go ahead and create the zones you need. You can delete zones if you don't need them. For now, I'm just going to say yes. All right. So we are all set. Our PI is essentially done. Those inventory quantities have been updated. Really what that means is that all my on hand is now 0. That's okay for me. Like I said, you want to go ahead and make sure that we have successfully uploaded all of our zones if we are using that all inventory. All right. So now that that is done, I did want to take a quick moment to go ahead and pop on out. And I want to go ahead and open up my merchandise adjustments. And so I wanted to take that time to show you guys the actual adjustment memo that's created when you run your PI. Because at the end of the day, all PI does is create a quantity adjustment memo for you. And so if you realize that, oh, we must have messed up here or there, some of the counts are a little off, we could always use a quantity adjustment memo to correct them again. And so here is that quantity adjustment memo for reason physical and source physical. So you can tell that that was created in my physical inventory tool. All right. Perfect. We have a few requests for the manual, and of course, I'm going to go ahead and get this manual attached to the email that we're going to go ahead and send out to everybody as well. And if you guys have a request for a different version of the manual, feel free to let me know, and I'll kind of jot that down and make sure you get the right one. All right. And so here is that adjustment. I'm going to jump into form view for just a moment. All right, and so my screen might look a little different from your guys's, but this is one of the defaults that we kind of roll out. I do enjoy this because you can kind of see that breakdown in cost and what that really means to you. And we can, of course, reprint this, print. And I like my BHD memo. If you guys don't have that document, again, we can get this to you. I like the BHD memo because it's kind of an all-in-one. I have information on quantity, cost, price, all of it. And so because this is from my physical, the only ones that were adjusted were the item, or the only ones that are on this page are the items that were on my discrepancies list. Because your discrepancies are the only ones that need to be adjusted. All right. So I can go ahead and close out of that. Remember, this is my BHD memo. Besides your BHD memo, if I pop into reporting, we also have our adjustment reports, BHD ADJ, PI ranked departments, items, top 10 shrink. We have a lot of PI reports. Again, if you're missing any of these, let us know. We can drop them in for you. We also have an interesting report like our PI zone report here. This one, it's interesting because it doesn't have any parameters. This one, it kind of looks like it's going to fail, but then we can run it and it'll run no matter what. All right. So for this one, I got no record found. That's just because of some setup that I have to go ahead and do for this report. But it does break it out by zone. It's an item zone report. If you don't have this report, again, let us know. We'll get it to you. Close the report. And then our PI ranked reports are all up here as well. These reports will also show other adjustments. So if I run this particular report and I just open this up, actually we'll cancel this for right now. I'm going to go ahead and run that. I'll leave it at the default filter. All right, perfect. So you can see my reason physical. Like I said, this is not by default looking at only PI. It's looking at all my adjustments. I just don't happen to have too many adjustments in the last month, but we can filter for whatever you're using for physical. So if it's not quite physical, if it's PI, then we just filter for PI, and there we go. All right, close that. As mentioned, I know that's not technically part of PI, but I just wanted to remind everyone that we do have these additional resources available for once you're complete with your PI. But that is really about it. So we've gone through everything, preparing our PI. So this one is going to be for remote stores. We have some additional steps for our remote stores, that is including prepare your PI, do that quick poll and process in. And of course, updating our PI is what we just did. You have to select your store before update becomes available. And so this here is going to be, again, specific for the PT. This is just that reminder on how to clear files, how to enter data, and some of the functionality keys. All right. That does, like I said, bring us to the end of our manual and the end of our PI. So at the end, I'm going to go ahead and stick around. If anybody has any additional questions, I'm happy to go ahead and answer them. Like I said, I'm keeping note of whoever's asking for the manuals, and if you have a specific version you're looking for, we can make sure you get the right one. My name is Liz with Big Hairy Dog. And actually, before I let you guys go, let me go ahead and all right. That's my email on the screen, lizm@bighairydog.com. If you guys, get a question in 5-10 minutes, feel free to just email me that question. I'll do my best to answer you in a timely manner. And of course, if it's something urgent or you guys are about to start your PI, please give us a call. We take all PI calls as down calls. Just let us know that you need some help completing your physical. All right. Well, thank you so much for everybody who joined. And like I said, I'll be here for a few minutes if anybody wants to go ahead and ask any more questions. All right, so it looks like we have no additional questions as of yet, so I'm going to go ahead and let everyone off a little bit early today. Again, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Liz with Big Hairy Dog, and this has been a Retail Pro version 9 webinar on PI. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a good one, everybody.